Yesterday, ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa addressed what he's called a roll call at Nasrec for councillors from across the country that he hailed as a historic moment for transformation in local government. A service delivery action plan was announced to take the councils forward leading up to the local government elections next year. Now, Faiez Jacobs is a former Chief Director of Salga, responsible for councillor development, and he wears many hats, but today he will speak to us about an article he wrote ahead of the gathering where he contended that the meeting was a crucial moment for accountability and tangible service delivery. And we're joined now on, at least virtually, by Faiez. And thank you so much for your time and welcome to Morning Live.
Good morning, Sakin, and thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Faiez, your article characterized the meeting as a line in the sand. And watching yesterday's events, did you get a sense that it actually turned out to be just that?
Look, I think we need to move beyond the pledges to actually proof of delivery. So it was very symbolic. It was very powerful to have about 5,000 councillors in the room, President giving the marching orders. Some would argue it's a bit late, but there's still a year for them to prove themselves. So I think the councillors need to step up to the plate. The ANC needs to step up to the plate. People want a different ANC. And so when I wrote the article, it was about what are the steps, what are the key things that councillors must do, and how do they get accountability going? So it's not only just attendance and singing like the chairperson said on TV. It's actually about getting things right. And I think the councillors are at the coalface of many things. People are angry. People are rightly wanting more from our councillors. So it is a serious moment. It's a historic moment. I would argue they should have done this long time already. But I'm hopeful that it's not just a once-off event. Hopefully, in 3 months' time, for December, the SU will call another session like this and get accountability. But I think the jury is still out, Sakina.
So, you know, you speak to Gwede Mantashe and what he said about the singing councillors, because he says, you know, we are good at singing. We are singing councillors, but we have no councils. Action, dololo. And that is rather scathing, you know, an indictment on everyone who was present there yesterday, not just on the councillors, but also on the leadership of the ANC. Because if they've been aware of that, what have they done about it?
Indeed, I think it is a moment for critical reflection with all the structures, from the president right down to your branches in the ANC. And people are saying they need a better ANC, a more capable ANC. And so, yes, there is a level of seriousness. I mean, even the post briefing, you could see the councillors, the ministers, the SG, the war room. So the talk is there. I think for me, the key things now is to get the alignment, is to, once the councillors go back to their areas, the rules are there. I mean, we've now got a new local government architecture from developmental local government. And admittedly, it's easy to be at a national or provincial level where there's more policy and coordination. And so you need more effort, you need the best hands, you need the best capabilities. But more importantly, you need our councillors to either shape up or ship out. I was very impressed that the president made those calls, very critical of the party, very critical of the organization. And also he said quite clearly that we can learn from other areas. We can learn from best practices elsewhere. And that caused a lot of controversy. But I think it's important that ANC people move away from herd mentality and also ensure that, yes, we can learn from DA-run municipalities. Yes, we can ensure that our councils are professional, but at the same time, we ensure that the transformation agenda. So the president was at pains. He listed what I would almost argue, the 5 core areas of good governance, of local economic empowerment, of public participation, meaningful. But the most important one is basic service delivery. People want their lights to be switched on, refuse to be collected, water to be delivered in an affordable and accessible way. Admittedly, there's a lot of backlogs. Our needs outweigh our demands. So the budget, how we manage our money and being prudent about more getting back for our investment is going to be crucial. So councillors are not meant to have their hands in the till and focus on tenders. And I think that's a big challenge. What they're meant to do is provide leadership, provide oversight, be facilitators, but also champion my area, my ward, for competing interests in a particular area. So then we look at how we build consensus and how do we communicate. Maybe this year it won't be our turn to get housing development, but maybe next year it will be our turn, or we're lobbying for a street light, or we're lobbying for water, so that the people don't have to do the service delivery process. So I think a lot to be reflected on, a lot for the ANC to improve. And I think the SG's office, now that we've listened, they've said their promises, now we need to ensure that accountability is kept constantly. And the jury's out. I mean, if they don't pass the test, people will not only keep the councillors out, but also move elsewhere.
Unfortunately, nothing that was said was really new, if we're being honest, Faiez. You know, you speak about people wanting a different ANC. Again, you know, people have showed their dissatisfaction, not just with the ANC, but with other parties as well, by the voter turnout at the polls. So the ANC may look at that and say, yeah, maybe there is still something that can be salvaged here. But when the president praises another party, you know, I look at the headline in Sowetan this morning, praising DA is sabotage to the ANC. Councillors reject the president's praise of political rivals' performance in municipal governance. So you look at that, and the question has to be asked. The president made that statement, but at what cost? We saw Helen Zille was very quick to react to that, you know, and saying, yes, absolutely, following the DA model. But at what cost does this come to a president already in his second term? Because we know presidents in their second term are yesterday's man, so to speak.
And no, there will always be politics. And I think the president said what he said, and the reaction to it is within his party and opportunistically within the DA. Look, I think the DA they also have their own set of challenges. I live in the city of Cape Town, and I'm very critical of how they perform, especially for historically black and colored communities. So I think the jury is out. There's hypocrisy and what I call skynheiligheid. But I mean, coming back to your point about apathy and voter apathy, I think we need to ensure that South Africans keep our politicians across the line accountable. And when the president speaks his truth, some would argue we need more refreshing, critical, self-critical voices within the ANC, because I think that will help itself in its path of renewal. So when people see at the ANC to say, oh, the line is drawn in the sand, not here, not further, I think that is important and refreshing. I think the president still wields enormous power, influence, and he can do that for good. Speaking truth, ensuring councillors are accountable, ensuring that at least now in the next year or so, councillors can be made visible, communities can assess them, to ensure that at least when the next local government comes around, communities must ensure that they have quality, capable councillors that serve their people, whether within the ANC or elsewhere. I think that's important for the president to be critical and also to steer the ship, because people are tired of the talks. And you're quite correct. People are saying that we've heard this all before. The proof is in the pudding, the eating of the pudding. We need to ensure that councillors have matrices. Councillors do 5 things a month, they report, and that builds the trust. No longer talk, it's deliver, deliver, deliver. Yeah, let me pause there.
Yeah, and as we wrap this up, Faiz, because is this too little, too late, given that we're just over a year out from the next local government elections? Because people have been complaining about a lack of service delivery. People have been complaining about the caliber of councillors that are elected, and I guess to a certain extent, when it comes to ward councillors and, of course, those who come through the PR list, the electorate has to take responsibility for who ultimately is elected to serve them. But in the event that people don't see it that way, they look at those who have been elected and they say, you failed us, not just ANC, in various municipalities across the board. So is it a little too late, or is there still enough time to salvage something here?
I think in South Africa, we must always be hopeful. I think for me, having a roll call of such magnitude just does demonstrate competence. It's not easy to pull together the biggest representatives these are actual legitimate councillors in less than 72 hours. So the attendance is there, the optics is real, and I think when the ANC galvanize and mobilize its people, I think it is a show to behold. I don't argue it's late. I think it's still a year to be done. People want services now, so there's never late for us to focus on our people's needs. Councillors are there to fix and serve and solve our people's problems, so they must get down to that earnestly. I think it's important that we build or M&E monthly reports, performance management, and consequence management. I mean, this thing about the ANC saying that they want a list of corrupt councillors. Whilst it's late, I think it's an important step in the right direction. We mustn't just get our leaders to talk these things. They must live and lead by the examples. Look, politicians will play politics, and the communities will ensure that next year, local government, they'll choose the elections. We are in a democracy, participatory democracy. We want to encourage those probably more than 20 million South Africans that didn't vote. This is your chance to be involved, get involved, know what's happening, be an active citizen. At least be registered so that you can make your choice, whatever that choice is. We still have a democracy where we can make choices and we can differ and disagree. Once we choose that councillor, we hold that person accountable, and they must deliver for our people. That's the democracy that we have and fought for.
And as someone who has worked in that space of councillor development, you've seen the caliber of councillors that have come through. Salga has bemoaned in many instances that very issue where they've spoken to political parties to actually have a serious look at the people that they actually deploy into these roles. So from that perspective, do you have much hope that things will improve in terms of the councillors that actually are deployed? Very little can be done about those who are elected directly, but for those who are deployed by the parties, all parties, are you hopeful that it could get better?
In the past, there wasn't a minimum qualification, but I think this time parties should really seriously consider to have at least matriculants. We know some parties have leaders that don't have matric, but I think we need to have empowered, educated, literate, capable councillors. So I think that is a basic minimum. I mean, there's a whole course on councillor development which train them on leadership, budget, how to chair meetings, how to engage with communities, how to build, facilitate, create consensus. And the training is very detailed. But I think you also need to have characteristics. You need to ensure that you are committed, you are focused, you are service-driven, you are a servant leader for our people. And so councillors must be chosen on experience, on merit, on capacity, on willingness to deliver. And so all the parties have their candidate selection process. We're hopeful that it's not only party loyalties, but ensure that our people deserve the best, and there will be competition. You see, that's the greatness of democracy. And so the ANC is going to have to ensure that its candidate selection process move away just from lists to ensure that we present the best candidates You see, the ANC has this notion of women candidates, 50-50, 30% of young people. And these are all good criteria. But we must ensure competence, capability, and capacity.
Faiez Jacobs, thank you so much for your time. Faiez Jacobs, former Chief Director of Salga, responsible for councillor development and many hats that he wears, as we indicated previously, and speaking to us today about an article he wrote ahead of the ANC gathering yesterday, containing that this was a crucial moment for accountability and tangible service delivery going forward for the African National Congress.